Hello, listeners. Welcome to yet another edition of Courage Talks. Special guest today is Heidi Neck. She's an accomplished educator, author of multiple books, and she's trying to make an impact in entrepreneur education by making it more innovative. Heidi, welcome to Courage Talks.
Thank you, 𝗂𝗃𝗏. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you. So, a lot of us know you as you are today, but not many people might know about your childhood, your growing up days. So, why don't you just take us down memory lane? Tell us some of the naughty stuff that you did, or something that your parents still remembered about it for a long time.
Oh my gosh, all I can say is I'm so happy that I did not grow up in the age of social media. And I feel sorry for the kids today who are growing up in like everything's scrutinized, everything's under a video camera. But I grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, so in the southern part of the United States. I thought that state was absolutely normal until I left the state. I mean, different food, different culture, different ways of speaking. But I did grow up in the time of you just are living in a neighborhood and you go and play with all the other kids. You don't come home till the sun goes down or your parents notice that you're not there. They start calling the neighbors. So it was really safe. It was a really good upbringing. And then you make it into your teenage years. And this is where I'm glad social media wasn't in play. Sneak out at night, hang out with your friends. I remember I loved cars and like I could not wait to get my driver's license. And in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, you could get your driver's license at 15. But at like 13 and 14, I was pushing my mom's little Mazda RX-7 down the driveway and sneaking it out and just to drive around the neighborhood. Not even go anywhere else, just to drive around the neighborhood. It was a good Southern upbringing.
So, which was the first car that you bought on your own?
I would say that was a Toyota Celica
Okay.
when I was in college. I actually had to borrow some money, but I paid it back. And it was a red Toyota Celica. And everyone said, don't get a red car, Heidi, because that's when the cops pull you over. But I was fortunate. I never got pulled over. I was a good driver.
That's nice to hear. So,
Because I
you
had so
mentioned.
much practice since I was 13 years old stealing my mom's car.
That's very interesting. You mentioned about being shy during childhood, but you still at that time had a dream to come on stage. And after observing you at the 𝗂𝗂𝗃𝗿𝗏 Symposium, I felt that you are one faculty who totally belonged there. So natural. I know it's gone through many editions and you've done that, but you obviously didn't display any stage fear of any sorts, if there is still anything left. What got you to that journey? How did you come around that transformation?
This is a weird story, and it's kind of, I have a vague recollection, but I was very shy, very, very shy until like the third or fourth grade. And I remember being on the playground at my elementary school, and at that time it was just a blacktop. Maybe it was raining that day or something, but I just remember being on the blacktop. And I was just kind of like hanging out, looking for rocks on the ground on a blacktop. And the teacher came over and she's like, Heidi, what are you doing? I said, I don't know. I'm just looking for rocks. And I was by myself, just looking for little pebbles on this blacktop. And I remember that so distinctly. And it was like on that day, I said in my little head, I've got to get out of this. I got to be less shy. And I don't know what I did to be less shy, if it was just kind of a click, because a lot of times changes in my life is just kind of just clicked my mindset all of a sudden, even though it doesn't happen like that in reality. But that's what
Yeah.
I feel like happened. Ever since that fourth grade experience, I kind of just got a little bit more bold. I kind of became the class clown at the same time. And that kind of followed me throughout my education.
Uh-huh. Got it. So, do you remember the first stage moment or
First
stage moment that
stage,
remains
the
with you?
first stage moment. Well, I remember I tried out for an eighth grade play, like for one of the big parts, and I didn't get it. So that kind of hurt. And then I remember in probably fifth or sixth grade where they wouldn't give you A, B, and C. They would give you like A, B, and weak or needs improvement. And that my singing teacher said weak. So I never really wanted to sing because I thought I was a horrible singer. So between didn't get the good role in the eighth grade play to I can't sing, I kind of gave up the need to be on stage. But I
Okay.
guess over my education and just career, it's like every job I held, it was presenting or talking to people in some way. Even when I was a little girl, there were two games I played. I always played elementary school teacher and grocery store, like a business, playing with my mom's and dad's old checks and stuff like that. So if you put that together, it makes sense that I'm a business school teacher.
That's an interesting way, the way you put it. You could say you had a different version of Monopoly all over.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. So the topic is Courage Talks, and the story behind the podcast is my book, Against All Odds. I know you got a signed copy of the same.
Yes,
Um,
thank you.
it talks about my father's stories of courage. What does courage mean to you, and who's your role model for courage?
Courage to me is just moving forward in the face of uncertainty or fear. And that's going to mean different things for different people because we all have different thresholds of handling uncertainty, or what's fearful to me may not be fearful to you and vice versa. And when I think about courage, I was thinking about just about my own courage. When I'm faced with an uncertain situation or I'm scared to do something, can I push through? In terms of role models, that is such a difficult question because there's so many out there. But for you, it was your father. For me, when I really think about a role model for courage, and I think courage and strength kind of go hand in hand, it would be my mother. But there's so many popular role models out there, from Gandhi to Martin Luther King Jr. to many of the presidents that we've had around the world, to just every person that stood up for something that was risky. And that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. Anything about your mother would you like to share? Anything
Well,
that
my mom, she passed away during COVID, but she
I'm sorry.
left a really huge imprint. She lived how she wanted to live. She died at 80, but even though that's young, I think she had a very robust, entertaining, joyful life. I'm fortunate to have a mother who did that. But I guess she didn't finish college. She married in college. And so, typical at that time in the 50s and 60s, mother stayed home, raised the kids. And then in the 70s and early 80s, that's when a lot of divorces started to happen, as with my parents. My mom was pretty much left with nothing, including raising her kids. And it's kind of like when you didn't finish college and you never really worked a day in your life, at least for money, because she was raising her 3 kids. What do you do? I just remember watching her. She like always had a dream of being a travel agent. So she started off as a secretary for a travel agency, and then she became a travel agent. And then she began booking all of these huge trips for all these really wealthy people. She ended up just kind of doing that. And she was very resourceful, very people oriented, could talk to anybody, could introduce you to anybody, could strike up a conversation with the person next. I remember her literally striking up a conversation with a person sitting to her next on the plane when she was coming to visit me. And when I picked her up a baggage claim, she was introducing me to the person that she met as if we should go on a date together. She was just that kind of this magnetic personality that was able to be resourceful and just push through. And she was she, in a weird way, my brothers and I had a childhood where we didn't know we were even struggling. And that's kind of what she created for us. When we were kind of living to paycheck, I don't think we knew it at the time. That to me is an amazing mother.
What's the most precious gift you gave your mother?
That I gave my mother?
Yeah. Doesn't have to be in value, but something that you remember, something that you worked hard toward and you said, okay, this is for you, mom.
Oh, I remember writing a poem for her, and then she framed
Oh,
it, and it was in her bedroom like for years growing up. That was kind of cool.
so we're already getting to know new facets of you, about your singing, now your poetry as well. Okay, so as an educator, an important facet of your role is career planning, career navigation. And you seem to have had a fairly roundabout way before you reached where you have. So why don't you just take us through briefly, why did you take the winding turns and how did you land up where you have today?
Yeah. I think it's important to know that I've never been a goal setter. So people like, what's your 5-year plan? I'm like, I don't have one, but I am very open to seeing opportunities. I'm always looking for a new path, even if I don't take it. It's like I'm in constant search mode for my next thing or what I want to do next or what path I may take if I come to a fork. But looking back, I think it's pretty traditional how I got here. I mean, I was a business school major. Then I went and worked for a large Fortune 10 company. I was in the chemical industry selling plastics. And at that company, all roads, it was a time where they were fast tracking women. And so I was moving around quite a bit, but I didn't enjoy the work. And so I found myself kind of in a state of not depression, but well, maybe a little bit, definitely miserable. Like I'm not enjoying my life right now. And so what one do when they're working for a corporation and doesn't enjoy the job that they have and not really sure what to do next, because every job they could get, the headhunters were in the same industry and it was a similar job. They go to grad school. So I went to a full-time MBA program, tried to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. My brother, I have two older brothers. My first older brother, he was working on his PhD in organizational behavior. And I don't know, I've always looked up to him and what he was doing. And I'm like, wow, he's going to be able to teach and research and do consulting. That would be really cool. Well, when you're in an MBA program and you're like, well, that would be fun to do, but then you look back on your education and all that, I wasn't like the great A student in the world, especially in college. To me, it was all about getting as much practical experience as I could. Like going to class was secondary for me. That's connected to how I teach today, by the way. But anyway, so I went back for my MBA program. On paper, no one should let me into a PhD program, but I was getting my MBA at the University of Colorado Boulder. And I was really interested in entrepreneurship, and I was reading everything. I was doing business plans for small businesses when I was in my MBA program. So pretty much right when I arrived to Boulder, I went and found the head of the doctoral program, and his name was Dale Meyer. And I went in, I had an appointment with him, and I said, Dr. Meyer, my name is Heidi Neck. I recently started the MBA program here, but I really have aspirations to get into the PhD program. And look, I'll be quite honest with you. On paper and test scores, you should not let me in. But if you give me the opportunity for the next 2 years, I will do research for you free. I'll sit in on your doctoral seminars, whatever it is, to prove to you that I have what it takes to pursue and earn a PhD in strategy at the intersection of entrepreneurship at the time. So technically my PhD is in strategy. And Dr. Meyer said, okay. So he made me take doctoral classes that were not contributing to my MBA. He did get me a research assistant job, but he did pay me. So I was able to take these seminars and produce papers and at the caliber that the other PhD students were doing. And I took the GMAT again. It still wasn't that great, but he pretty much he goes, we need to let Heidi in. I will put my career on the line. I think she's going to be a good one for us. He ended up being the chair of my dissertation committee, a mentor until he died, which he died last year, Alzheimer's. You know, the thing about life is sometimes when you don't think you have what it takes, if you have the guts to find a champion that can help you through it, then that's what Dale Meyer was for me. I think I made him proud by the time he died. And so we were very tight until then.
Wow, that's a very sweet story, and really appreciate that you could take us down memory lane in terms of all the experiences. Another important facet of your teaching is how you focus more on how to teach than what to teach. And I, as a student at SE, will definitely vouch for the fact that you really focused on the concept or the way the teaching was being done. That's where the more focus is. Has that got a background to it? Any of your own teachers wowed you like you wowed me?
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for saying that. I've had a lot of teachers that wowed me, and they were all very different. In college, there was a leadership professor that just wowed me. This is interesting. I hadn't really thought about this. There was a leadership professor that wowed me, and he was very experiential in terms of these hands-on exercises that you can imagine you would do in a leadership class, such as, you're thrown on a desert island. You only can bring 3 things. What are you going to bring from this list? And you have to work with a team. Those old exercises. Yeah. But then I also had a professor in college who was my marketing research professor. Not the most dynamic guy in the world, but he was able to show the importance of the topic, the work that we were doing. And we were doing work with companies to do their market research. Then there was a psychology professor that I had. He could teach a class of 500. They were standing room only. He would smoke in front of the classroom, but he was just so engaging as a performer. So you kind of think about those 3 guys. The leadership professor was experiential. The marketing research professor was practical and serious. But then there was the performer of the psychology professor. And maybe as I look back, which I've actually never done this before, had kind of a combination of all 3. Because my goal is to be a very engaging and creative and innovative professor. But the student would leave a class and say, but damn, she was tough. So I didn't want and I know you experienced this in the C program, my spirit of play and being playful and engaging in a class. I didn't want that to equate with lack of rigor. So I worked very hard to balance the rigor with the experiential and playful side.
Yeah.
But I also say that content is secondary. That how we teach is more important than what we teach, because content, especially in what we're doing in business and entrepreneurship, content has become a commodity. It's everywhere. You can get what we're teaching free everywhere. And with the proliferation of AI, it's becoming even that much more pervasive.
Yeah.
So the question is like, what is our role? If I want to find the lyrics to a favorite song of mine, which happens to be Landslide by Stevie Nicks, I quickly go to ChatGPT or Google and like, give me the lyrics, and boom, they're there. Didn't have to buy a textbook, didn't need a teacher to tell me this. And then
Yeah.
I can even find an amazing video of Stevie Nicks performing this live. And
Yeah.
cool, I'm engaged, I'm watching her, I'm crying. I'm like, this is wonderful. I don't need a teacher for that. So the question is what is our role? So we can read the lyrics, we can watch the video. So our role as educators is to help the students sing, because I still can't
Yeah.
sing Landslide. I can't
Yeah.
perform like Stevie Nicks. So I need someone to help me do that. And I think that's what our role is in higher education, is to give our students, metaphorically, a place to learn how to sing and to sing well.
That's very interesting. And I love the last part that you mentioned, that while emphasizing on play and fun, the element of seriousness should not go away. And the PPT towards the end of the program made sure that we realized that we were, end of the day, accountable for something in return as well. And somewhere I can look at it very synergistic to a founder or an entrepreneur's role as well. He has to make the team work and yet make them happy, make sure that they meet the deadlines, and yet are not pressured so much that they leave the company. So it's a very difficult balance to be drawn. You have taught 6,000 plus faculty members across 75 countries as part of the SCE program and otherwise as well. Knowledge of the audience is one strong point that we all crave for. Okay, I know it's a UG batch. I know they are from here. I know this is that, right? But when there is such a diverse crowd, is there a sense of ambiguity, uncertainty, kind of fear lurking when you are walking into a room of 47 plus people who are coming from such disparate and varied backgrounds? What is the element of connect that you're looking for?
Well, it's a great question. I used to be really nervous. Even in your program that you attended, there were 15 countries represented, and even more than that in terms of where they're actually from, because that was 15 countries that people were working in and coming to the program. So the way I look at it now is, whether I'm doing a program at Babson or someplace internationally, I'm being asked to do this program for a specific reason, to show or illustrate or help people learn and practice different ways of teaching. That's what I'm bringing to the table. I can't pretend to be from India. I can't pretend to be from Chile or Peru or Brazil. I can't pretend to be from the UK or anywhere in the world. So I go in as, if I have to say I'm an expert at something, I go in as an expert of teaching in my context, but I'm entering your expertise of context. So if you're bringing me in, then I can do what I do, but it's your job to either adapt or try. So I can't pretend to understand all the cultures, but what I can say is that I'm here to learn, and I never seek to offend. But if I am offending you in some way, or please push back, but also let me learn how I'm offending you. And also, if you offend me in a certain way, I'm going to push back and let you know how you're offending me, because that's how we learn who we are. That's how we learn our differences. That's how we embrace our differences. But one thing I find, no matter where I go, no matter what country I'm in, even though they may say we can't play in the classroom or we can't be as experiential in the classroom, they are just as engaged as any other person around the world. You put me in a room in India, you put me in a room in China, they're still engaged. But if those Indians and those Chinese are in the US, they're like, we can't do this. But I'm like, but you're engaged, aren't you? And I think I shared this story in the C program. At one time at Babson, I had created, it was called 𝗂𝗂𝗃. So Symposium for Entrepreneurship Educators from Asia, primarily from China, a little bit from Japan, none from India at that time. It was just primarily China. And I specifically set up an experiment on day 1 or day 2 of that 2-week program. And they were at Babson residential. And that same day, we did a lecture, we did 2 case studies, and we did an experiential exercise. something hands-on. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they were in groups building stuff or something, a little bit playful. So at the end of that day, I did a reflection. I'm like, all right, let's think about our day. We started off with a lecture on ABC. We did 2 case studies, and then we ended with this hands-on experiential exercise. We did a poll. I said, tell me where you were the most engaged during the day, where you were like all in. And 90% of the room was that experiential exercise. I'm like, okay, now tell me how you teach back home at your university or college. And 90% was lecture and about 10% was case studies, maybe 20, 80%. And I'm like, okay, but why? Especially the 80% of you that were lecturing, why? If you weren't actually enamored or engaged or all in during the lecture this morning, how can you expect your students to be? So let's kind of develop more empathy for the students that we're teaching today to figure out how we need to be the best educator we can be. Because the default is to become the educator that you were educated by. So I'm looking at my college professors. Therefore, I need to stand up and lecture and speak to you or do problems on the board, as opposed to let's think about the generation that we're teaching today and what do they really need? What's engaging them? So whenever I see students that are on their laptops or inappropriately using their phones, I take a lot of responsibility for that. I'm not saying it's their fault. I'm saying there's something going on in the class of what can I do to change? And that's me reading a room today.
You mentioned about not being goal-oriented. And if you ask me, if I'm teaching a bunch of students, I would prefer them being goal-oriented than not being goal-oriented, because then it makes my task easy. Now, as a faculty, would you be okay if your students are not goal-oriented and you can still handle them well, or it can be more difficult?
Well, can you help me understand what you mean by goal-oriented in that class?
Someone who's got a very clear thing. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to become the CEO of $1 million company, and so on and so forth, right? Being able to clearly articulate what he or she wants in life.
The types of where I'm teaching currently, mostly I've been teaching at either the intro level in undergrad or the intro level at the MBA. But yeah, I've done juniors and seniors as well, and of course executives. But let's just take the undergraduate first year or the MBA first year. I don't want in their first year for them to actually have such a goal, because then they only see that goal and it narrows their possibilities. I think regarding like the entrepreneurial mindset, my job is to help them see the possibilities and maybe looking in spaces they haven't been able to look before. So that for me is where the entrepreneurial mindset comes in, is can I scan and see the possibility? And as long as maybe I have a direction, maybe not CEO or a startup, but a direction. And a direction can be, I just want to be successful and happy in a space around sustainability. I want them to think about their curiosities and their passions, but sometimes even the MBAs, they may not really understand what they're passionate about yet. Take me, for example. I went back because I'm miserable. I wanted that 2 years as a break to explore what the possibilities could be. And today, the undergraduates, because their lives have been so structured in order to get into college, they haven't been given the ability to just say, cast about, explore. I know you're at a business school, but figure out what parts of business that you love. And you may find that you love all parts of business. So then that may be where you want to be a founder, or you may love working with people. So maybe it's more HR or sales, or you love the numbers, or you think you love the numbers and then you get in the numbers and you hate the numbers. So I need at least their first 2 years to be more exploratory. As long as they're driven, goal-oriented and being driven are not synonymous.
Yeah, because I'm remembering something which goes something like, you need to know where you're going, otherwise you can go anywhere, or something like that. It's basically having some basis or some fundamentals. What I try to focus on is to, as you mentioned, focus on the core. You have a clear core. You mentioned about being focused on one area like sustainability. That kind of narrows down the focus so that you're not dwaddling around, because especially PG, 2 years of MBA is not such a long time. And if you are coming in on day one and you're not clear, it's very unlikely that you'll suddenly get clarity in a few months' time. So it's a pretty big red flag if I'm teaching a B school student and he's not very sure about what he wants to do in life. But yeah, we get all kind of students coming across all the time.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I just don't think that's realistic, especially with the 2 year full time, because there are 3 types of MBA students that I've seen. And I taught them for about 15 years. One, like me, miserable, not sure what they want to do. And I do think you can get clarity in quite a few months because
Humble of
MBA
you.
is networking and really interacting with your class and understanding the possibilities and getting to know your professors and seeing what's possible in your next career. So miserable like me. Two, especially at Babson, they're coming from a family business and they're going back to that family business. And then third, the MBA who knows exactly what they want to do. All three are in there. But if I'm teaching at an intro level to entrepreneurship, whether it's graduate students or undergraduate students, I want them to imagine themselves as owners, as founders. If it's not a startup, I want them to consider themselves owners of their lives. So they're going to entrepreneur their lives. If they want to start up something, okay, let's figure out what you want to start up. I just want them to have a spirit of ownership and creation, kind of playing offense around their future as opposed to playing defense around their future. So being more proactive and not reactive.
That's true. You started a company, got a successful exit, you've been on the boards, you've gone through the cycle before you became an entrepreneurship faculty. Two questions. One, is entrepreneurship and the entire realm of entrepreneurship any different from how it was at your time when you were an entrepreneur? Number two, do you have a significant advantage to a non-entrepreneurship background academic faculty who's teaching entrepreneurship?
Well, what's interesting is that when I started at Babson, I had not started ventures. I had done a lot of consulting, at that time, a lot of business plan writing. My journey in entrepreneurship has been concurrent with my professorship. That goes back to me focusing on how one teaches as opposed to what one teaches, because I've seen a lot of very successful entrepreneurs enter the classroom and just bomb miserably. Today's classrooms, you could be that billionaire entrepreneur and you're going to have those students around your little pinky for maybe 3 weeks. But if you can't teach, you're going to lose that course. You're going to lose that class. I've always just focused on, even on day one, I don't care what my resume is, and I don't care that you care what my resume is, and you probably don't care what my resume is. So let's get working, and through the course of the semester, you'll get to know all of my successes, but I'm not going to tell you about them all on day one. You may look me up, you may Google, you may be impressed, you may be unimpressed, but you're here to learn, and I'm creating an environment from which you can learn. I'm only talking about 1 or 2 startups that I've had. That's a very narrow window of learning. My goal is to teach you how to learn how to learn. Not every startup is very different. Yes, what I started is going to be different than what someone else is starting up in Silicon Valley. So every entrepreneur story is just a fingerprint to me, and all fingerprints are different.
Yeah, I think I love what you mentioned about a seasoned entrepreneur trying to teach, because I always believe that if your charisma walks into the room before you do, you're already having a tough job on your hand, because you're setting the wrong expectations. You're walking in with an aura of success. So all failure lessons are trashed out right from step one. You're focusing on what I got it right, so you might get it right, which is something which I learned in my first stint in leadership, that I was trying to get my team members to work the way I did because I thought that's the only way to work and nobody else knows better. And that completely contrasts your style of play, where you're allowing each individual to have a role and a contribution to make right from the very first half an hour in the class, and not just sit and take notes and trying to be mesmerized by what's being taught, which can happen if the aura of the faculty is too dominating. They might tend to take everything. They might not challenge the entrepreneur enough because they feel, oh my God, what if I ask this unicorn founder, why didn't he do this? I would look stupid and my class would laugh at me. Have you had such experiences yourself where you've seen train a successful entrepreneur having failed in teaching?
Oh, definitely. Entrepreneurs are great storytellers, and they're quite successful. At least the ones that you bring in are usually successful. But in terms of structuring a course or organizing the class materials, they don't realize how much work. It's easy to be a guest speaker, so easy. And you can have an amazing class with that, being that guest speaker for one day. But run 14 weeks of that's a whole different ballgame. Preparing the syllabi, figuring out the assignments, connecting assignments to learning objectives, figure out how to engage the students, keep it experiential, make it applied, make it relevant, assessment and grading. It's a whole different ballgame. That takes a lot of training. And I think we do a disservice to many of our adjunct professors by just throwing them into the classroom. That is not fair, just in higher ed in general. And as we use more and more adjuncts, and they bring the relevance into the classroom and the practice into the classroom, but we have to spend more resources training them and helping them succeed.
You had a tough experience with the Ideate course, which was knocked out by AI, but you came back strongly with another course, Hatch and Hustle. Just walk us through what happened, what transpired, and how students reacting to the new course.
Well, so let's talk about the Ideate course. The Ideate course was a course for juniors and seniors or sophomores if they could get in. And the problem I was trying to solve with that course is that in so many courses at Babson, the entrepreneurship courses, you're either expected to come in with a good idea or you're giving like 1 or 2 weeks to work on an idea that you want to do something with during the course of that semester. Well, unless you're coming in with a concept that's kind of been proved out a little bit, you're lost and you're likely going to come up with ideas that are either very boring or grounded or been done before or something that's just impossible to do. And so I wanted to create a course where students could literally just work on generating business ideas in order to use some of those ideas in their later coursework or actually go start. So I generated a course called Ideate, where students were required to generate 100 business ideas over the course of the semester. And there was lots of pathways and methodology around that. And I do think there was a lot of rigor in that course. But it worked really good for the first 2 years. And then AI came along. And then I started playing around with, okay, you can use AI for 25 of your 100 ideas, or let's compare AI's ideas to your ideas. But then I'm very empathic with my students. I can empathize with them. I said, if I was sitting in this room taking this course and I had all this other stuff going on, and as much as I want to develop my ideation skills, but AI's right there, I'm going to be using it. So the old song that video killed the radio, for me, AI killed my class Ideate. But there were parts of Ideate that I thought were really powerful and that were AI proof. And that a lot of that stuff was more mindset driven. And so I brought that into another class called Hatch and Hustle. And Hatch and Hustle is a class that students new to Babson have to take. So it's a required course. We have a course, a long-standing course at Babson called Foundations of Management and Entrepreneurship, which is a year-long course that all first-year students have to take, and where they're in groups where they have to start and run a business. So the first semester is spent planning and designing, and the second semester is spent executing and running the business and managing it. Well, as Babson has grown, we have allowed more transfer students in, and now we admit students in January. So they are not able to take that year-long course, but they still want that creation experience. And they weren't getting it in the course that they were taking. So Babson asked me to redesign that course for transfer students in January admits. So I created a course where they still had that startup experience, but in one semester. And I worked it where it's smaller teams, not as much money given to them, much more faster pace, have to be up and running by week 4, week 5. Pivoting is allowed, but it's definitely, to me, a mindset-driven course and a courage-building course. AI can tell you what the ideas are, but AI can't execute for you. AI can maybe tell you what to do, but it won't do it. So it's very action-driven, very doing, sales-oriented. I'm having fun with that one. Students come in, they're like, you mean I have to start a business in 4 weeks with like 2 other people, and I'm only given $500 to do it? And this isn't just a project, this is actually doing it, and I have a bank account? I'm like, yep. We're going to do it together. My goal here is to make you succeed. I want everybody to be profitable. If you're not, we'll learn why. If you start something and if it doesn't work, start something else. This is how side hustles work. And you're going to learn how to create a side hustle.
Yeah, I agree. Ideation is a pretty critical activity in entrepreneurship. And a lot of times the idea is right, the timing is wrong. The timing is right, idea is wrong. And, you have all. But when students were walking in for the Ideate course, they obviously were all not ready at that point of time. And obviously the course was helping them get there. What are the major trigger points, if you might remember, which allowed the students to shift and jump the fence and get on that and say, no, now we are ready? Is there a eureka or an aha moment normally, or is it something which is a very gradual, slow transformation?
In that course, I thought it was a gradual, slow transformation. In the beginning, they think, oh, generating 100 business ideas, no problem. But when you define a business idea as I need to be able to see a potential path to revenue, it changes. If I can't see a path to revenue, that's not a business idea. Try again. When they're having to produce 10 of these every week and they can't repeat, it becomes really draining on the students. So my goal every week was to give them new tools to ideate, new things to practice, new ways of looking at the world. And so they're getting all of these tools. I still think it could work in a class if they're using those tools in AI. But again, it's a gradual practice. It was built on deliberate practice, doing something over and over again, using different tools and getting better and getting feedback every time. That's why I think it was gradual. That by the end, they were quite proud of what they created. And I still get messages today from students like, I look at the world daily in a different way because of this course. It's not just about ideas. It's about just looking for opportunities and seeing things that perhaps other people don't see. I always said in that class, you're always going to be on the edge of your comfort zone. And as I said in the C program, I'm hoping that edge changes a little bit every day. That's what I see. And that's why it is gradual. I don't think it's a one day I'm A and the next day I'm B and I'm a changed person. It's not like that.
Yeah. Something related to it is entrepreneurship mindset. And I know you would rather say mind shift than mindset. I wrote a post on that. But is it possible to even relatively measure entrepreneurial mindset? Can you say for surety the guy's got it now and he's in it for sure? Or is it that circumstances can change someone, a bad business failure can change someone, and he or she might never try entrepreneurship again?
You know, if you think if any academics are listening to this, they're like, yes, we can measure entrepreneurial mindset. We can measure changes in how we're thinking. And I think there's a lot of great neuroscience stuff happening in the fMRI images, and that's all. I don't know if we definitively have that definition of what entrepreneurial mindset is. For me, my definition of entrepreneurship is a way of thinking, acting, and being that combines the ability to identify and find new opportunities with the courage to act on them. And that courage piece is very important to me, which is why kind of we connected on this. I don't know if you can have an entrepreneurial mindset without having some type of courage. And that's what I'm always trying to build in students. Can you measure courage? I don't know. You tell me. Have you seen any measurements of courage?
No.
I think it's hard.
Yeah, it
And
is.
and that's why I'm always using mind shifting. People say, well, Heidi, how do you know your students have an entrepreneurial mindset? Is because I ask them. And if they say yes, and if they believe it, that belief in self is the precursor to courage. If we're scared, if we don't believe in ourselves, then we're not going to do something that scares us. We're just going to just go back into our shell and not take any risk. But if we have belief in ourselves, then that is the precursor to courage.
Yeah. But I think the unpredictability of measure of courage and entrepreneurial mindset is probably the reason why courage is probably the number one facet of entrepreneurship. The fact that I don't know where I am, the fact that I don't know if I will succeed, that realm of unknown, and jumping into it despite knowing that failure is more likely than success is what makes entrepreneurship or any courageous task that more difficult. And that's where the appreciation comes in, especially when people were not from that realm, not from that background. They didn't have anything to assure them of success to be able to, and they still jumped in nevertheless.
They
Play the
do. I think,
sorry. Yeah, please,
well,
please.
if I can just add to that,
Yeah.
I think in a context of uncertainty, we have one of two emotions. We either have fear or excitement. What's interesting about those two emotions is that they produce the same physiological symptoms. Our heart races, a little bit stress happens and
Yeah.
adrenaline. The only difference is if your emotion is of fear, then you see uncertainty as a threat. If your emotion is excitement, you see uncertainty as an opportunity. But in a classroom, the good news about this is that you're going to have people that are scared and people that are excited. The same emotion and the same feelings under uncertainty. So I just have to manage that. The people that are scared to look at the opportunity, but also the people that are excited to be realistic that we need to look at this not through rose-colored glasses. We need to
Yeah.
look at the disconfirming data as much as the confirming data.
Right. Obviously, you emphasize on play a lot, and we discussed on the back and forth which happens when students in your class are asked to engage in play. They're embarrassed, they've never done it before. I won't say for everyone, but a majority of the students, somewhere or the other, would have gone through play, if not in school, if not in kindergarten, at home. I think it's a stopping of play, which is bigger problem than restarting play. The fact that we start to take life seriously at some point of time and believe that doing a funny dance is not normal, playing pranks is not normal, pulling someone's leg is not normal, is where things get difficult. And it's not just for entrepreneurship, it's for career in general. Nobody likes an employee who does his job, gets 10 out of 10, is sulking in the corner, and walks out at 6 p.m. sharp. Everyone would love that guy who's walking, every time he's walking up to the water cooler, he's saying hi to you. He's appreciating your shirt. He's saying, hey, let's just call food in, well, let's dump our tiffins and let's have some outside food or something like that. Why is life so serious?
Wow, that's a great question. Life is so serious because we think play is not. I know
Hmm.
that sounds weird or
No, that's
you know,
true.
kind of
You
simple,
believe
but
that play is artificial. You believe that play is not you. This is
yeah,
not me. I've
yeah.
been told
But
it's not
when
me. Yeah.
but ask yourself, what are the best nights that you've had? Game nights with family or friends, or when are you laughing the most? And it could be the flag football game on Thanksgiving Day. I know so many families that have like cooking competitions in the home to see who can make the worst meal. It's like these are the things that we remember. Learning happens only through emotion. And sometimes when you're just so serious and it's like this, and this, there's no emotion. Play generates some type of emotion, or being playful generates some type of emotion where you're just buying in. Students, I'm not a video gamer, but I know a lot of them, a lot of students, and as much as they're staying inside and playing in the basement, they are playing for 50 hours to master a game. Why can't we have them play for 50 hours a semester, mastering our course content?
Yeah.
So I don't know if life got so serious or if we just compartmentalized serious versus play, as opposed to bringing them together and say we can seriously play. I mean, we're in the World Cup right now. Serious
Yeah.
play has more rules and boundaries and points. And not, sometimes when we think about play, we go back to childhood where it was just making a tent in my backyard out of nothing but leaves and sticks.
Yeah.
There was no rules. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I think we need to start thinking life again as feeling like we're living, and we're only living if we feel some type of emotion. Then why don't we feel positive emotion through play? That's why I teach the way I do, because I get bored if I'm just up there using slides. I get bored also teaching the case method. Not that I don't, but I get excited by seeing that my students are excited. My energy matches their energy and their energy matches my energy. I've never had a student accuse me of playing too much.
Nobody's going to complain that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking when I was speaking, the play does not stop. It's just that the play gets competitive. Whether it's dance, whether it's drama, whether it's sports, your parents start asking, okay, how did you do? Or what happened? Oh, you're not doing well in tennis? Why don't you sign up for squash? Or you're not doing well in swimming? Why don't you try diving? Before the guy can really embrace or immerse himself in a sport, he's shifting sports, he's shifting activities. I wouldn't blame the parents because parents are also going through the same realm which the students are. Students feel that they need to show something to the parents. Parents think they should need to show it to their neighbors or their Facebook friends or whatever it might be. But the whole show culture is where the problem comes in. The moment you start ranking, the moment you start differentiating between the good and the bad, people obviously would like to be among the top rather than to be among the bottom. And if they are on the bottom, they might rather not play. They might just snuggle and stay cozy in the back bench, hope that they are not being asked questions, hope they're not being judged, and they just pass through life somehow or the other.
I kind of take a different opinion.
Sure.
So if I took a finance job because someone told me I needed to take a finance job and I'm
Yeah.
not good at finance,
Hmm.
then I'm not going to be happy. So I can't imagine the kid who can't really play basketball very well probably doesn't like it because he can't play very well. So why should he play basketball? I would think that the parent would say, all right, you don't like basketball. What else do you want to try? And you just keep trying till you find something. And it may not be sport. It may be dance. It may be drawing. that they like, where they can excel. I often say, sometimes when I'm counseling students and they want to go to the Harvards or even the Babsons or the MITs, and they're upset that they can't get in, I often use myself as an example. I didn't go to an Ivy League. My undergrad is at Louisiana State University, but it fit with me and what I was doing there. I was able to excel to the top. I ended up getting one of the best jobs coming out because I found my fit. So fit is important. We can't force fit. And I think sometimes as parents, we try to force that fit when we probably need to kind of create a platform for our kids to explore what they like and what they don't like. Then we can leave the conversation away of, oh, well, Johnny was number 10 and not number 1. Well, Johnny was number 10 because he probably doesn't like what he's doing. But if you're noticing the kid in the backyard, a 3-year-old hitting a golf club and hitting it really well, say, hey, do you like playing golf? Here, let's work on that. I know everyone wants their kids to be really good at something. And I think parents need to be really good at helping their children find out what they really like to do.
So we spoke about the parents. How about the faculty? Would you really try very hard to make every student prosper, or just because of lack of time or constraint, you end up having to limit your attention to people who are responding well? I know it's a tough question, but would love to hear, how do you go around doing justice to the whole class? You did to ours. I'll be honest about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fortunate. I'm teaching classes of 40, 42. So I do have the ability to read the room. And let's say, hey, Tel, you were in my class and you were just not engaging. You were on your laptop, or you kept going out of the class to go to the bathroom or get water or whatever. I would just pull you aside after class and say, hey, is there something I can do to make this class more engaging for you? I make it an I statement, even though I don't want to say that, but I make it an I statement. I said, is there anything I can do? And they may say, well, usually what happens is something's going on, or they're lost, or they don't feel like they're part of the community in the class in some way, or they're scared they're going to be cold called upon, or they just have something in life going on that has nothing to do with the class. But what I'm showing in that moment is that I care, that I do see that they're not engaging, and I'm not letting them pass. It's not in a reprimand way. It's like, hey, I see you. Let me know if there's anything I can do. I'll check back in later. But my expectation is that you're going to be more into the class unless you tell me how I can change things. I said, you have a lot to offer. I can see it in your eyes. Even though you're not super engaged, I can see it in your eyes. Even that standard conversation usually works. And that takes 30 seconds at the end of a class.
Yeah, that's true. And ultimately, they are not 40 robots. They are human beings. They have emotions. They have backgrounds, their own life outside of the class. So many times it's just a passing moment that they are not in it, despite if you make the effort and if they are still not engaged. I think your process is pretty makes sense. At least you want to complete that discussion right then and there, not reach out to him after a week or so, or say you attended 5 classes less or something. That could be more difficult to track back and justify as well.
That, and I mean, I also don't want to be too rose-colored glasses. You realize there are people teaching 4 classes, 5 classes, 6 classes a semester. That's a lot of students to deal with. So I don't think we can teach 300 individuals. And let's just say it was 5 sections. We have to kind of scan the room, do the best we can, make sure students feel included and that we're seeing them and we're listening to them. But I can't adjust my course to meet the needs of 40, 80, 120 different students. Life is about structure. You're going to take a job and you're going to be in this structure. We're hearing too much about, I even heard a story yesterday from a friend of mine whose daughter got a job, and then one day she was 15 minutes late, hadn't shown up, and then she decided to call and say she couldn't be there. I'm like, you can't do that. You can't do that in class either. So sometimes we're giving them, in college at least, and university, too much of a pass. Oh, you're 15 minutes late? No problem. Glad you could make it. No, you're 15 minutes late.
Yeah, that's true. I'm going to ask you a tough one. What is it more difficult at Babson, to be a student or a faculty?
Oh, I'm going to say a student. Babson is a very good school. We're very hands-on. It's hard to hide as a student because we're highly experiential and you need to show up. These students today, this generation has so many different things going on as we're talking about social media, pressures
Yeah.
at home, pressures to succeed, AI. College today is different than we were in college.
That's a very good one. Yeah, I agree with you. I think the socioeconomic dynamics have made it more and more difficult for students because they're onboarded with far many more expectations. The social media spoils the impression that people might get about them even before they start their career. Yeah, despite all the fun element that you might be and play element that you might be doing to make them feel comfortable and open up, ultimately that can't do away from the responsibility and the expectation that they carry when they come onto campus.
Absolutely. And we have high expectations. For years on my teaching ratings, I always get that I'm a hard grader and my expectations are too high. And I tell students that. And I'm like, I do not apologize for that. I actually think that's one of the greatest compliments someone can give me. So I said, just prepare. We're engaging. We're building a learning community. We're having fun. But I have high expectations. That's the nature of the game. Welcome to Babson.
That's true. We heard that you picked up pickleball recently and you got that beginner mindset in and go getting. What's the story? Who dragged you into it?
Oh, we moved from closer to Boston up to the North Shore, the coast of Boston, and I wanted to find community. And I had been wanting to play pickleball. So we just signed up. I'd been a racquetball player. I dabbled in tennis, but I love sport in general. And I love golf as well. But pickleball is very social community. And we just ended up making a bunch of friends here. And then it just got bigger and bigger. And now I play a lot more and I just love it. It's just fun and social and active, a little bit competitive, which feeds that need I have as well. It's just a nice activity to build community.
And you're getting better at it?
I think so. I have a medal right over here. I won a tournament the other day. Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. You keep teaching students and prepping students to face uncertainty and ambiguities. Could you describe one ambiguous or uncertain moment of yours in your life? Probably you were emotional, vulnerable, you didn't know what to do, anything that strikes you.
Probably a few. I do remember when I was working for that large corporation between undergrad and grad school. I just remember like sitting in my car, and that's when we had car phones at the time. And I was
Yeah.
actually on a call with something, and then I put the phone down and I literally just started crying. I'm like, I hate this job, but I did not know what to do next. And so you also have expectations of people, like I should be in this job. I should grow in this corporation. And sometimes it's hard to listen to your inner voice when there's so many other voices talking to you. So that was a rough spot. I think I've had a couple of those that kind of brought me on different paths. And I think also personally, I am married to a woman, and that was very difficult to come out in my life. So
Mhm.
that was probably the most difficult thing that I've ever done, and still is to this day very difficult because you're not really sure how people are going to react. But
Yeah.
as you age, you get much more comfortable in your skin. Students today are so much more open than our own generation. So I'm much more comfortable being out to students. If I go to a local church and start talking to people, I'm going to tell them probably. So it's a different world. I do appreciate that part of this generation as much as I hurt for them in terms of all the pressures that they have. Their openness to people is just wonderful.
Hmm. On the first point, do you remember whom you called after crying?
My brother Chris, because he was in graduate school at that time and he was talking me through how to get into graduate school, what I should be thinking about. That will give me a break. So yes, I called him.
Hmm. On the second part, I agree with you. Somehow I find it a lot more easier to talk to students 2 decades, 3 decades younger to me than many of my peers because having a progressive mind, being more outwardly, being more knowledge hungry, you tend to find more solace in other people also being knowledge hungry. And that's where kind of a mix happens. And students appreciate the fact that you are going out of your way to build that bond and build that connect as well. That's what probably makes me and look forward to a classroom full of people whom I have never met before, but I need to really transform them and start making them like me in a few hours from now. You're full of energy when you walk into a classroom. What do you have for breakfast?
This morning I haven't even had breakfast. I just have my coffee here.
I'm sorry. I've come.
No, I just wasn't hungry. Breakfast is either coffee and some 𝗂𝗁𝗏 cereal or a yogurt. I'm not a big eater in the morning. If I'm miserable, I'll get a cinnamon roll on the way to work. Cinnamon rolls represent comfort for me.
So it must be something you had for dinner overnight. I don't think cereal and coffee can give you that kind of energy.
Yeah, I'll grab something to eat after we get off of this podcast. But yeah.
I know. What's the one question which you're still seeking an answer to about life?
Where do we go after this? I used to be afraid of dying. I'm no longer afraid of death, because it's like, why be afraid of death? Because it's death. And so let's just assume we're no longer here and we no longer think about not being here. But I'm very spiritual, and I truly believe in like these energy and other realms. And it's not like I go into detail or really like, it's not like I've studied it or anything. I just believe that there's so many other dimensions happening around us. And I had all the time in the world, I would get a lot more into quantum physics, but I don't necessarily believe in this. And I do not believe in this entity of heaven, and that this one God is going to accept you in or not. So I'm trying to figure out really what comes after this, and will I know something is coming after it, or will I just kind of keep going? You believe sometimes, like we meet somebody like they're an old soul or a new soul. I mean, you can tell this kid's an old soul, so he or she's been through other things or been other things. That's the unanswered question.
Very interesting. You have a spiritual guru, if you...
I do not have a spiritual guru. I actually went to Catholic school, K through 12. And so I'm not a fan of organized religion, but in a certain way, organized religion over the years have given people community. And so I don't think we have enough community now. So we need to kind of bring that back, but not necessarily through organized religion. Spiritual guru, no, I do not. Do you?
Yeah, there's a guru called 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗃. He lives up north. He was pretty well-to-do. He had done his MBA from Australia, started a startup, was doing well. Late 30 or something, he suddenly decided to give everything up, went to the Himalayas and meditated and achieved nirvana. And he started authoring books. He's written 17 plus books. He's got a small ashram up north. What I loved about him was his ability to relate to people, because he's late 40s. Age-wise, he's not so old. Fluent English speaker. He has seen the world. He's not sat in one part of the country and propagated what the world needs to do, anything of the sort. He stays away from politics. He stays away from religious doctrine and also and so forth. For me, if I would really have to call out, my dad was definitely an inspiration for spirituality. Unfortunately, I got to know bulk of it after he passed away, because through the book is when I really discovered what he was and what he did for me, what spirituality meant to him, and how it had guided him, especially because he went through almost last 12 months fighting cancer. So I could observe the way he was, why he was the way he was. I didn't have to ask questions, and I was getting answers without asking questions, without he saying anything. I could understand so many things which I would not have understood when he used to tell me 2 or 3 decades back. Because as they say, right, you do what your parents do, not parent what they say. So he did so many last acts which made me much closer to him.
What question did he answer without words that you remember most?
I'll tell you one small story. There's this book called Die Empty. Have you heard of it?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So the premise of the book is the largest knowledge bank in the world are graveyards. Because when you die, you give away your house, your belongings, your cash, your jewelry, all your stuff is given away in your will. What you don't give away is your knowledge. You take it away with you. Unless, of course, you authored many books and you shared with the world what you're doing. Yes, my father didn't write as much as he should have. And if he had written, he would have been a far bigger author than me. And that's one thing which I wanted to correct. I write about everything, from the smallest thing to the biggest thing. My daughter knows so many intricate things about me just because I write in the public and I don't care. So I think that element of not leaving out anything to be shared was one central learning I got from him. He was never after money. He was never after richness, but he left behind enough to make sure that we were going to be happy. He didn't show any conscious effort at any point of time. He spent as much time with us all the time. He didn't go out of his way to really make a living. He did for 6 years when he moved within cities within India. But when he was with us, he was totally with us. That says a lot, because many times your physical being, your parents' physical being, does a lot more than what anything else can do. You might
Yeah.
be in different rooms, but you are around, you're at the beck and call, makes so much of a difference while growing up.
I think my dogs would say the same thing.
That's so sweet. So thank you very much, Heidi. I have a last question. I'll leave it to you if you'd like to ask. What's the question you have for me?
Well, that was a big question I have for you. When students ask you for one piece of advice, what do you usually say?
Never give up. I think resilience is very important for any student. You will always have 10 reasons to not do something. That's a philosophy of life. We would any day not do than do. If I'm sitting, I would rather not stand up and sit. If I'm
Yeah.
sleeping, I would rather not get up. Comfort. The moment we start embracing comfort, we tend to gravitate towards it for the slightest sense of discomfort. Oh, it's going to rain, let's not go out. Oh, the roads are blocked, there's traffic, let's not go.
Mm.
But we will never know till we do it, till we experience it. Of course, there are some tasks which are fairly logical, but to tell students to not give up despite the pressure that they face, despite the ambiguities that they are facing, is important, because if you just keep going, you will get there. But
Yeah.
the problem is you don't spend that enough time. So resilience is key.
Yeah, that's a good one, especially
you.
with this generation of students. Yeah, well, this was
Exactly.
fun. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heidi. It was a pleasure talking to you, and all the best.
Thanks, Ata. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.